Listen to me, you can work. You can strive, you can push with all your might, but if you are not connected, it will all be in vain. You will sweat, you will labor, you will wear yourself thin, and at the end of it all, you will look down at your hands and see nothing but dust slipping through your fingers. A branch does not bear fruit by trying harder. It does not strain and struggle, hoping that maybe, if it just pushes enough, something will appear. No, a branch bears fruit because it is connected. Its life is drawn from another. It has no power in itself. The moment it is severed, it shrivels, dries up, and is only good to be cast away. And so it is with you. Look around. Look at those who chase after things in their own strength. They build, they conquer, they amass wealth and power, and yet inside they are withering. Their works crumble. Their legacy fades. Why? Because they were never connected. But the one who abides, the one who remains, the one who is truly attached, this one bears fruit. And not just any fruit, not artificial plastic man-made fruit, real fruit, lasting fruit. Fruit that does not rot. Some of you are tired. Some of you have tried everything, but you are running on empty. You have built a system of self-effort, but your roots are dry. Why? Because you are depending on yourself. You are trusting in your own wisdom, your own abilities, your own strength. And it is not enough. It never will be. You were never meant to live this way. You were never meant to carry this alone. You were meant to be connected, to draw from something greater, to be nourished by something beyond yourself. That is where life is. That is where strength is. That is where true fruit is found. And I tell you, if you remain, if you stay connected, if you draw near, you will see the fruit come. Not by your striving, but by your abiding. Not by your strength, but by the life that flows through you. So stop trying to be something on your own. Surrender. Be connected. And watch as the fruit begins to. You can work as hard as you want. You can strive, push, and discipline yourself with relentless effort, but if you are not connected, none of it will matter. There are people who spend their entire lives chasing after success, pouring everything into their work, their goals, and their ambitions, but in the end they are left exhausted, empty, and unfulfilled. They wonder why all their effort has not produced what they hoped for. They ask themselves why, after doing all the right things, they still feel dry and lifeless inside. The answer is simple. Fruit does not come from effort alone. It comes from connection. A branch does not bear fruit because it tries harder than other branches. It does not produce grapes or apples because it has a strong will or an impressive work ethic. The only reason a branch bears fruit is because it is connected to the tree. The moment it is severed, it has no more life in itself. It may still look fresh for a little while. It may still have some color. But eventually it withers. It dries up. It becomes brittle, and its only use is to be thrown away. The same is true for anyone who relies on their own strength. There are people who seem successful for a time. They build their lives on their abilities, their discipline, their intelligence, and their hard work. And for a while, everything seems to be going well. But when the storms of life come, when difficulties arise, when they reach the limits of their own strength, they begin to wither. What they built begins to fall apart. They are exhausted, burned out, and broken. And they do not understand why. The reason is that no one was ever meant to bear fruit in their own strength. Just like a branch cannot sustain itself apart from the tree, no person can sustain themselves apart from the source of life. Many try. They look for substitutes. They chase after money, power, relationships, success, and recognition, thinking that these things will give them what they need. But these things cannot sustain them. They may satisfy for a moment, but they will never produce the fruit that truly lasts. There is a difference between working hard and bearing fruit. Hard work in itself is not wrong. Discipline, commitment, and perseverance are all good things. But if they are not rooted in the right place, they will not produce what truly matters. A person can spend their whole life working, building, and striving and still come to the end with nothing of eternal value. Real fruit is not man-made. It does not come from external effort alone. It comes from something deeper. It comes from being connected. When a branch is attached to the tree, it does not have to force the fruit to grow. The fruit comes naturally because the branch is drawing from the life of the tree. In the same way, when a person is connected to the right source, their life begins to produce fruit, not because they are trying to make it happen, but because it is a natural result of being connected. Some people are exhausted, worn out from striving, trying to prove themselves, trying to achieve something that will give them worth or purpose. But all their effort is in vain because they are not connected. They are running on empty, trying to pour out from a source that has nothing left to give. And the harder they try, the more they realize that something is missing. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this but the answer is not to try harder. The answer is to stay connected, to abide, to draw from the source of life, and let the fruit come as a natural overflow of that connection. Fruit does not come from effort alone. It comes from being rooted in something greater. It comes from staying connected. There are many people who spend their lives believing that if they just work hard enough, plan well enough, and push themselves far enough, they will find fulfillment. They think that success is simply a matter of effort, that if they just keep going, eventually they will achieve the satisfaction and meaning they long for. But time after time they come up empty. They push harder, chase more, accomplish greater things, yet deep down, something is still missing. There is a dryness, a sense of dissatisfaction, and exhaustion that they cannot explain. No matter what they do, it never seems to be enough. The problem is not the effort. It is not the hard work. It is not the discipline. The problem is that they are trying to sustain themselves. They are running on a limited supply, drawing from a source that cannot sustain them. A person who depends on their own strength will eventually run dry. They may have energy for a time, motivation for a season, but eventually they will reach the limits of what they can do. And when that happens, they will begin to break down. A person can build an impressive life on their own. They can create a successful business, develop great skills, gain the respect of others, and accumulate wealth. From the outside, they may look like they have it all together. But the real question is not what they have achieved. The real question is what they have built upon. If the foundation is their own strength, their own wisdom, their own ability, then it is only a matter of time before it begins to fall apart. There are people who are admired, respected, and even envied by others. They appear to have everything they could ever want. Yet many of these people are quietly suffering. They lie awake at night feeling empty and unfulfilled. They wonder why, after all their success, they still feel like something is missing. The reason is simple: they have placed their trust in themselves. They have tried to carry the weight of their own lives, and now they are exhausted. Some people, when they reach this point, make the mistake of thinking that the solution is to try even harder. They tell themselves that they need more discipline, more focus, more effort. They convince themselves that if they just push through the exhaustion, eventually they will get what they are looking for. But they are only running further down the wrong path. More effort will not fix the problem. It will only lead to more exhaustion. The only way to avoid this cycle is to recognize that self-reliance is a dead end. No one was meant to sustain themselves. No one was meant to carry the weight of their own existence alone. A branch cannot survive when it is separated from the tree. It does not matter how strong the branch appears to be. The moment it is disconnected, it begins to wither. It may take time, but the process is inevitable. It has no life in itself. Many people do not realize they are withering until it is too late. At first they feel strong. At first everything seems fine, but slowly, without even noticing, they begin to dry up. They become weary, they lose their passion, they feel numb. What once excited them no longer brings joy. What once felt meaningful now feels empty. They begin to drift. And if they do not wake up and realize what is happening, they will find themselves completely drained, without the strength to continue. It does not have to be this way. No one has to live in exhaustion, constantly striving but never feeling satisfied. But the only way to escape this trap is to let go of self-reliance. To recognize that no amount of effort will ever be enough. That the answer is not found in working harder but in being connected to the right source. Only then will true strength, true joy, and true fulfillment be found. A branch that is disconnected from the tree does not wither immediately. At first it may still look alive. It may retain its color, its shape, even a sense of vitality. But the moment it is cut off, the process of death begins. Slowly the moisture fades, the leaves dry up, the structure weakens. What was once strong and full of life becomes brittle and fragile, breaking under the slightest pressure. And in the end, it is only good to be cast aside. This is the reality for anyone who tries to live apart from the true source of life. There is a deception that comes with self-sufficiency. It allows a person to believe they are strong, that they are doing well, that they are thriving, even when they have already begun to wither. It is a slow process, an invisible decline, and by the time many realize what has happened, they have already become dry and lifeless. There are people who seem to have it all together. They are confident, self-assured, driven. They build successful careers, gain influence, and accomplish great things. To those around them, they appear unshakable. They seem like they have figured life out, but inside they are growing weaker. The pressure mounts, the weight increases, and soon the cracks begin to show. At first they try to ignore it. They convince themselves that they just need to push through, to work harder, to be stronger. But no amount of effort can change the reality that they are disconnected. Laziness was building inside her body. A branch does not wither because it is weak. It withers because it is separated. Its strength does not come from itself, but from the life flowing through it. When that connection is severed, the outcome is inevitable. It does not matter how large the branch is, how many leaves it once had, or how much fruit it once produced. The moment it is cut off, its decline begins. This is why so many people struggle with burnout, exhaustion, and emptiness. They are trying to sustain themselves. They are drawing from their own strength, their own wisdom, their own ability. And for a time, it may seem to be working. They may accomplish much, achieve success, and gain recognition. But deep down, something is missing. The joy is gone. The passion fades. What once brought excitement now feels like a burden. Some people, when they reach this point, refuse to acknowledge what is happening. Instead of recognizing that they are disconnected, they work even harder. They try to compensate for their emptiness with more achievements, more possessions, more distractions. They surround themselves with noise, with busyness, with entertainment, anything to avoid facing the truth. But no matter how much they chase, they cannot outrun their own withering. Others try to replace what they have lost with temporary solutions. They look for quick fixes, for surface-level solutions that mask the deeper problem. They turn to relationships, to success, to pleasure, to anything that promises to bring them back to life. But none of it lasts. None of it can restore what has been lost. It is like trying to tape leaves back onto a dead branch. It may look convincing for a moment, but the truth remains unchanged. The only real solution is to be reconnected. A branch that has been cut off cannot survive on its own. It cannot will itself back to life. It must be grafted back in, restored to the source, brought back to the place where life can flow once again. The same is true for those who have become disconnected. Strength is not found in effort. Life is not found in striving. The only way to truly thrive is to be connected, to remain in the place where real life flows. Some may ignore this truth. Some may continue to push forward in their own strength, refusing to acknowledge their need. But no one can escape the reality that a disconnected branch withers. No matter how strong they once were, no matter how much they once accomplished apart from the source, they will eventually fade. And when that happens, the only question that remains is whether they will humble themselves, return, and be restored. There is a difference between something that looks real and something that actually is real. A person can create something that resembles fruit, something that appears good, successful, and even admirable, but if it does not come from the right source, it has no life in it. It is artificial. It does not last. It is nothing more than an empty imitation. Many people spend their lives trying to produce fruit on their own. They build careers, achieve goals, and gain recognition. They work hard to appear strong, confident, and accomplished. From the outside, everything looks impressive. Others may even admire them, assuming that they have everything figured out. But appearances can be deceiving. It is possible to create something that looks like fruit but has no real substance, no lasting value. It is possible to appear successful while being completely empty inside. A tree does not produce fruit through effort alone. A branch does not bear fruit because it forces itself to do so. The process happens naturally when the branch is connected to the tree, drawing life from its source. If a branch is cut off, it can no longer produce real fruit. It may still look healthy for a time, but it is only a matter of time before it dries up. This is the danger of artificial fruit. It allows a person to convince themselves that everything is fine, even when they are disconnected. They surround themselves with achievements, possessions, and distractions, thinking that these things will give them life. They measure their worth by their success, their influence, their reputation. But none of these things can truly satisfy. None of them can replace the life that comes from being connected. Some people build their entire lives on artificial fruit. They work tirelessly to maintain an image, to convince themselves and others that they are doing well. But deep down they know the truth. They know that something is missing. No matter how much they accomplish, no matter how much praise they receive, there is still an emptiness that cannot be ignored. They try to push it down, to silence it with more work, more success, more distractions, but the feeling remains. And then, when difficulties come, when the pressures of life become too great, the truth is exposed. Artificial fruit cannot sustain a person when real trials come. It cannot provide strength when everything falls apart. When the storms of life hit, When the weight of reality presses down, the artificial fruit withers. The image they worked so hard to maintain begins to crack. And in that moment, they are forced to face the reality that everything they built was hollow. But real fruit is different. Real fruit does not come from striving. It does not come from human effort or self-reliance. It comes from abiding. It comes from being connected to the source of life. When a person is truly connected, the fruit they bear is not something they have to force. It is not something they have to manufacture. It happens naturally because it flows from the life within them. Real fruit lasts. It does not fade when difficulties come. It does not crumble under pressure. It remains because it was never dependent on human strength to begin with. A person who is truly connected does not have to fear burnout, exhaustion, or emptiness. They are not trying to sustain themselves by their own effort. They are simply drawing from the source that never runs dry. Some people will continue chasing artificial fruit. They will keep striving, keep building, keep trying to prove themselves. But in the end, it will all fade. It will all fall apart. Only what is real will last. Only what is truly connected will remain. There comes a point where striving is not enough. A person can push themselves as hard as they want, discipline themselves, force themselves to meet every goal, and still feel like they are running in circles. They can exhaust every resource, pursue every avenue of success, and yet find themselves empty. The harder they try, the more they realize that something is missing. The more they strive, the more they understand that their strength is not enough. This is the reality of self-effort. It convinces people that if they just work a little harder, they will find what they are looking for. It tells them that if they just push through, if they just give a little more, they will finally have peace, joy, and fulfillment. But it never works. The more they chase, the further away the prize seems to be. No matter how much they do, it is never enough. They find themselves tired, drained, and frustrated. And then comes the breaking point. The moment when they realize that all their effort has not brought them any closer to true life. The moment when they look around and see that, despite all their accomplishments, they are still empty. It is a humbling moment, a painful moment, but it is also a necessary moment. Because until a person reaches the end of themselves, they will never understand their need to be connected to something greater. There are people who refuse to surrender. They see surrender as weakness. They believe that letting go means giving up. They want control. They want to determine their own future, to rely on their own strength, to be their own foundation. And so they keep striving, keep pushing, keep trying to force fruit to grow in their own power. But no matter how hard they try, no matter how much effort they put in, they cannot produce what only comes from true connection. A branch does not bear fruit because it struggles harder than the others. It does not grow stronger by forcing itself to be more productive. It bears fruit because it remains connected to the tree. It does not have to strive, stress, or worry about how the fruit will come. It simply abides. It stays where it belongs. And because of that connection, the life of the tree flows into it, producing fruit naturally. This is what so many people miss. They think that strength is found in independence. They believe that joy and peace will come when they finally achieve their goals. But real strength is not found in striving. Real joy does not come from self-sufficiency. True life is found in surrender. It is found in being connected. It is found in letting go of self-reliance and allowing real life to flow in. Some people will fight this truth. They will keep trying to prove themselves, keep trying to build a life in their own strength. They will work harder, push further, and refuse to acknowledge their need for connection. But in the end, they will reach the same conclusion that everyone who has tried before them has reached. Their strength will fail. Their energy will run out. Their plans will fall apart. And when that moment comes, they will have a choice to make. They can either continue striving, continue wearing themselves down, continue living in the exhaustion of self-reliance, or they can surrender. They can choose to let go of the endless effort, the constant striving, the desperate attempts to sustain themselves. They can choose to stay connected, to abide, to trust that real fruit will come not from their own strength, but from the life that flows through them when they are truly connected. Those who surrender will find peace. Those who let go will find strength. Those who stop striving and start abiding will see real fruit grow in their lives, not because of their own efforts, but because they have finally learned to remain where true life is found. There is no life apart from true connection. No amount of striving, effort, or self-reliance will ever be enough. A branch cannot survive on its own. It does not matter how strong it once was, how much fruit it once produced. If it is disconnected, it will wither. It will dry up, break under pressure, and in the end be cast aside. Many will continue to chase after temporary success, building their lives on their own strength, producing artificial fruit that looks good for a moment, but has no real life in it. But when the storms come, when the weight of life presses down, they will see the truth. They will realize that all their achievements, all their efforts, all their self-sufficiency were never enough. But for those who choose to abide, who choose to stay connected, who surrender their self-reliance and draw from the true source, there is no fear of withering. There is no fear of exhaustion, of emptiness, of failure. Their strength does not come from themselves. Their fruit is not the result of human effort. It flows naturally because they are connected to the only source that never runs dry. The choice is clear. Continue striving, continue exhausting yourself, continue living on the edge of burnout and frustration, trying to force something that will never last or abide. Stay connected. Draw from the only source that can sustain you. Stop chasing after things that cannot satisfy. Stop trying to manufacture what can only come from real life flowing within you. A branch cannot force itself to bear fruit. It simply remains where it belongs. And because it remains, fruit comes naturally, strength comes naturally, life comes naturally. Stay connected, and you will never wither. Stay connected, and you will bear fruit not just for a moment, but for a lifetime.